Okay, so I wanted to make a quick little video about lighting and composition and all that. Oh my god, guys, it's beta. So this is not a room that I built. This was built by someone else. I'm not gonna really talk about it. My main thing is about player guidance and like predicting where the player is gonna look and then making use of that. So a lot of times I see people asking like, how does my map look? Can somebody give me feedback on the map and like how it looks? And then they show like this screenshot here, or like this or something, and I'm like, well, is this actually where the player sees the map from, or are you just flying and no clipping around? Because think of your game like a movie, right? I would ever only judge a shot from how it looks from a player's perspective, because that's what the player is gonna see. Not that this area has much detail, but like for example here, I spent time like cutting out this thing here, whatever it's supposed to be. No one's ever gonna see this. Look, you can't even really see this. Now I think the composition here is not that bad. It's kind of just like, I mean, once you look out the window, there's nothing to really look at, but this stuff in the distance and the light like shines in. But I have some even better examples here. The lighting is just completely flat here. You see, I just spammed these instances, didn't even change them. Everything is just the same color. There's no difference in color. But even more important than color is the value, and value is brightness. Watch any movie and you will see that the lighting is just always art directed and always it is not how lighting looks in real life. Something can look realistic but not be a pleasant image because you didn't art direct the lighting. So one thing that I would do here now is I would probably remove this light here to kind of give this area a bit more of a shadow. I see there's also a fake light in the middle here to brighten up this. I would remove this as well. And then I would have some sort of nice orange light more up here that would then cast some nice shadows through the doorway here. Like stuff like doorways, pillars, anything that can cast a shadow will always just help to make anything much more interesting. You don't even need projected textures for this, right? I mean, there are obvious ways to get shadows, but you don't need them. Just add a light here and have some nice light map grid scale, and then it will cast some nice shadows here. It sounds like I'm overanalyzing a little office space, but really, like, yeah, you can build office spaces that direct the player's eye and are more interesting. Like, there's just nothing to look at. There's so much detail, I spend so much time placing props, but there's nothing to see, really. There's no, like, screenshot-worthy shot here, right? But yeah, this is another good example here. This is actually a great comparison, because this area eventually turned into the shredder area that you see in Revolution. Here is the shredder, and there's the like conveyor thing. It's broken, but anything you need to enable it. That's why it doesn't work. Okay. Yeah, look at that. And now it spawns turrets. Yeah, it does. So let me just play this before I talk about it, really. So you have this, and you're walking along here, and then this turret like jump scares you, and you need to dodge into cover, and you can take it out. And now you get the chance to destroy the turret and throw it into the pit yourself. Yeah. Then you can keep walking, and we're done here. Directing the player's eye is really the most important thing, because when I enter here, there's nothing for me to look at. There's nowhere the game really pulls my eye. Everything here has the same color, the same brightness. The interior has the exact same lighting and like colors as the exterior. If I use a color picker, this is probably okay. I mean, it's different, right? But look how close these two colors are. With lighting, you really have two main options for adding variation. You have the value and you have the color. I would always prioritize value, and color comes second. Like that is like the black and white test. If your image looks good in black and white, it will look good with color. It doesn't really matter what the colors are. I would remove this light in here. One of the compositions you can always do is have the space around the player, or like right in front of the player, dark, and then have lights shine in towards the player with really bright and nice shadows. One of the things that I noticed is when your light is like behind the player, shining out towards, it pretty much always looks worse than if you're looking towards the light. Like if I'm standing here, I'm not seeing the entire light that's being cast here. I just see the shadows, and the shadows are nice and dramatic. See, like, this is a nice shadow right there. These are also really nice shadows. If I'm standing here, I am now seeing all the bright spots. I mean, there's some shadows cast in it, but like, when I'm standing up here, I can see the entire light that's being cast. So I always try to put the light shining into the player's eye, basically, right, rather than out of the player's eye. Holding a flashlight versus having a flashlight shining at you, it always looks more interesting where you have the flashlight shining towards you. Right, so that's an easy thing you could do here. You could turn off the lights here, have this be a bit darker and like moody, and then some nice shadows from wherever shine into here. Depending on how you angle it, it could even accentuate the lever a bit more, because as you saw, I haven't played this in like 7 years and I didn't see the lever there at all. And then that way you can also pull the player's eyes towards the thing you wanted them to look at. So problem here is, out here, what am I supposed to look at? First of all, the glass doesn't help, but then also the main interest is probably the shredder and the conveyor belt up here, but nothing here draws my eyes down there or up there. All of the points of interest that are here, like this could be a point of interest, I guess, if you develop it a bit more. This is a point of interest, this is a point of interest. These are all out of the way and not in a natural line of sight for the player. Like, look, I even blocked this with computers as if I didn't want anyone to look at that. Because looking out here, right, it's like detailed. There's stuff, there's greebles, as they're called. Greeble detailing is just generic stuff. But there's nothing to look at. There's nothing for me as the player where I immediately know, oh, that's what the game wants me to look at, right? I'm obviously being directed to here. So let's compare this with... So this is what that map eventually turned into. And I can now directly compare the two maps. Right away, the doors open, and this hallway is made longer. This door used to be here. So right in front of that other door. Then I added this in this hallway here, and then I moved the door here. But then players would walk out looking into this direction. And then Sterling comes out here, and they've already walked towards the door and don't notice him and just stand here and whatever. So that was a really awkward angle. So then I moved it over here, right in front of this. And then added the flashlights that shine into here, because originally this wasn't here. The flashlight didn't exist. But now you come out, and this space is dark, and you have a flashlight shining towards you with Sterling in front. There's always the thing about foreground, midground, and background. So here the foreground in this shot is like everything that's here, right? This like glass frame is the foreground. The middle ground is usually your subject that you want the player to look at. So in this case it's Sterling. And then the background is the background, of course. And you usually want to keep the level of detail so that the foreground and background have less detail than the middle ground. I mean, there is some detail here, but again, it's just greebles, right? Your mind immediately dismisses it as this is just aperture filler. What's the most important is Sterling who is talking, so that's what's animated here. And also, because the door isn't right here, right? Like imagine the door opens and you're already here. You don't have that nice little build-up. Having it all separated, so every area, every shot you can examine on its own. And here you see this and you can just walk a little bit towards it, and you have that little like moment of walking towards it, that little parallax, everything is moving, and Sterling, who is like a bit obscured by this frame here, comes into view much better as you get closer. Whereas if you just walked in straight away here, door opens, you're already there. You don't really see the nice lighting and all that, right? If you can look at it from a bit further away, that really helps a lot.
Get closer to the surface.
Oh yeah.
I found an elevator in this direction.
So there's also not that much, like here again you're turning the corner, and I'm already at that moment predicting that the player is gonna look to the right, because obviously, right, you're gonna look to the right here. if I wanted you to look into this direction, right, I could have removed this block and added some immediate obstruction right here. Then you wouldn't look like this, you wouldn't move your camera like that towards the vac tube. You would rather like just look like this, right? So just blocking the way, you can already predict camera movement, and you can playtest this, and people will actually do this all the time. So then at the exact moment where you move your camera like this, Sterling pops out and gives this dialogue, and then moves at a pace forward for you to want to follow him, or like, you know, for you to just keep walking and follow him. And then as you're turning this other corner, because this is nicely blocked, right, I blocked all of this off. I could have just extended this into like further, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna make this huge open environment and then it's gonna look better. It's not gonna look better, it's just gonna be more confusing. This is all blocked off, so your only way to look is this way, and then you have this nice large vista with Sterling on the rail, and it looks really cool. And we again have the foreground, which is all of this stuff here. You have the middle ground, which is Sterling, our subject, and the background is just aperture filler with some little points of interest, like the lighting here adds some nice splash, but it's not, you know, there's nothing really to look at here. Also, a good thing here is that the door, it helps that the door is not in the view as you're walking here, so your focus is still on Sterling. Imagine there was like a big door right here that's like really bright and different color and is attention seeking, right? You would turn the corner, look at Sterling, and then look at the door, and then just keep walking. That is what I would predict would happen. You know, you gotta playtest it, but you can get a pretty good feeling of what players are gonna do. And if you're just really blunt about your blocking, you can just direct everything so well. Right, coming out here, we have a nice moment again where the light shines in towards the player here. It's nothing really, I guess, I mean, it's not really that much to look at. The important thing is that this glass here gives you a nice line of sight towards the button. This used to be blocked off with just a wall, but then players would walk around like this and then dismiss this and turn the corner, and because this was more interesting, and then ignore the button. Actually happened. It's ridiculous what you sometimes have to do. Right, and here again, I intentionally like have this on the side because I wanted the player to kind of look around a bit here. This door just visually looks like it won't open, right? Because it's dark behind it. It doesn't have glass, so it's even more like a blocker. And the office to the right is just brighter. So, but yeah, I wanted the player to kind of look around a bit, walk towards this, and then sort of backtrack. Here again, the lighting already coming towards the player just directs you to the vent here. If this was like a dark corner, this could be much more confusing, but the lighting already helps to just immediately pull your focus. The right side is blocking us again, right? There's nothing here, it's just aperture greeble detail, and it's very close to the player, so our eyes is gonna move more towards this direction. And then on this side we actually have some points of interest. We have we have the fans with the volumetric lighting, we have the moving stuff here. There is color variation, there's the keep out sign, so all of the interest is on the left side here. So you're gonna walk through it like that, and because it's a nice and long walk, you know, I could have also dropped you right here. Bang. Like gameplay wise it's the same thing, right? But then you're like in the middle of the scene. I always like walking towards the scene, and you just have that bit of a moment where you can see everything, and then you're in the middle of it. But being in the middle is not it's not what you want to be. You want to see it from the outside. It's all just here to direct you towards the next area, because previously this would connect straight to the fan vista. So you open this door and immediately, bang, you're in the middle. Now this was a problem with performance because of all the volumetric flashlights, but also just compositionally, you didn't get a break from the first room to the second room. Like there was nothing in between that would separate the two areas. I always like to have a bit of a break between every space. This is again built with the blockers here for you to turn the corner like this, and right there, perfectly framed, is this. I've actually got a lot to talk about this because this also took a lot of variation and iteration. So originally the door was over here. This is why this is so long, because the door was right here. And this pillar didn't have this hole. It was completely filled in. So players would walk in and you couldn't see the fan. So because there's nothing to look at here, players would turn right, see this big, important, open, glowing door that is brighter than everything they see here and even has color variation. Like, it's calling for all the attention, right? And they would just walk like this. Mind that this lookout thing also didn't exist. This was just straight catwalk. So all of this work, all of this vista was completely wasted just because of the framing. Because players just wouldn't look at it. Now, it was kind of awkward to move the stuff around at the time, so I tried to just add a hole to this so you could at least see through the pillar. And then maybe players would like walk out and then like look like this. But nope, they would still do this and just walk straight through. So then I had to finally move the door over. You would now come out like this. However, this door was also just open at the beginning. There was no catwalk here. There was no catwalk here. This was just railing. So players would come out, listen to Sterling for a bit, not stare at it for that long, and then go straight through. Because we want the players to really look at it, we then added this little out section here so you can walk a bit more further towards this. If I did this again, I would probably remove this. I'm not a big fan of this. It's a bit over the, like, on the nose. But I would rather just have a bit of a lead up walk, like hallway back there, so you have some like 200 units or so that you would just walk towards this. Would also probably put Sterling a bit more below, so he frames this a bit better. It's not bad how it is, but you know, little changes you realize after a year. But talking about this again, yeah, you again have the foreground elements, which is all of this stuff. Middle ground. In this case, the background is actually what's interesting. And the background also has the biggest, like the most contrast and brightness, because the fan is actually rather dark. The yellow and the orange really contrast nicely with each other. So you have this strong silhouette, which is then also emphasized by all of the like cables that are kind of like, you have the cables here, you have the beams up there. Everything is very vertical, but then you have a few elements that like go horizontal like this to kind of frame this a bit more. Also, this catwalk is a bit to the right, so it doesn't block your view that much. This blocks the view a little bit, but that's fine. But if this was like right in front of you, it would just block the view completely. But we wanted this angle as our main angle, and then you have this like little foreground element here. I think that works really well. And then again, this is just such an improvement over the original design, where now as you walk in, there is a strong and clear focal element, right? It is so obvious what you're supposed to look at. It's right in front of you, perfectly framed, perfect colors, perfect everything. And then you have all of the supplemental stuff. You have the shredder in view, lit nicely by, important enough, it is lit by the focal element. Right, I always like having the focal element be the thing that actually lights up your scene. It's so easy to do. If you have like one focal element and the light source is something different, the light source can often like take away from the focal element. What am I supposed to look at? Am I supposed to look at the light, because the light is like bright, you know, and contrasty, or am I supposed to look at the focal stuff? It's best if they're both the same thing. The sun works a bit differently because the sun is just up there, so you're never gonna walk out and look straight up. Then we also have the conveyors, which this time you can see the conveyors from above, not from below. So you actually see that they're conveyors. You have the scrolling textures, and it's all just like below, rather than like having it all above you and stuff like that. It's just right in front of you on the same like layer vertically. Then also again, this area right here is dark. There's not really anything to look at here. This is all just dark colors and then the brightness in the background. So it really just steals your focus that way. There's not much coloration apart from this, which is intentional. This is like a separate secondary focal element, like do not engage with live turbines, as a bit of a foreshadowing for what's about to come. The stuff about the turbines there and there. This also nicely frames it. you often don't even see that it's got moving cubes and stuff in there. There's not really much interesting here. Actually kind of a bad looking shot. That's the thing, right? You don't need literally every hallway to be a photo. It's good to have that contrast of just connecting hallways that are kind of more bland, and also then your key set pieces, key areas. It's important for you to know which one of the two each area is, right? Like this here, it's always just a connecting hallway. Whereas what we had before is obviously a key set piece. So yeah, here, this is just a bit gimmicky with the big red light, and then the volumetric lighting comes down here. Yeah, the lighting here just directs you to where you have to go. I do actually have a flashlight that like shines from behind you, but it is intentionally placed. Can I do full bright? It is placed like I put all of these props in front. You can't even see them in the game really. There's all of these props and like I mean, let me just count it. There is the square beam here. There's cables. There's pipes, and also these cables, and that. It's all specifically placed to cast shadows from this. Because as long as the shadows are a bit like broken up, it can work really well. So here there's a lot of like shadow detail. You see, there's this, all of that stuff here, and this all just comes from those little shadow casting props that were added. Yeah, then here would have probably been good to have some sort of lead up hallway here again, but I guess this is fine. You just walk in, and at the beginning it's like a bit dark. It's intentionally like the lighting comes in right now, so it's kind of a bit ominous at first, and as you walk in, the lights flash on. Now the lights come from up here. The focal element was really obvious. It was the turrets. They're now blown away, and now the focal element is no longer there. But I actually think that this like floor itself serves as a nice focal element. Like this is a nice looking bridge because it's got all of the super high contrast floor markings here, and also the lighting shine from up here. Yeah, this is like a good example. See, like this just looks so boring, right? Versus from down here looks really good because you have all of the shadows. So all of these trusses and everything, and the lighting was placed to cast some nice vertical shadows that will invite you to walk along them, to walk like along this line, right? It kind of splits the bridge here into two halves. There's this lit half, and then there's the obscured half, and it's all got some nice broken up shadows. The shadows are only on one side, just to kind of give the contrast again, you know, like fully lit is boring, fully shadowed is boring, so half and half just gives you some nice differentiation. It actually kind of makes it more inviting to walk here, because this is kind of like a bit awkward to walk along. So now here we have the moment again where you can kill your turret. Interesting thing here is that this, like coming in from here, right, your camera is looking that way, but most players, they look this way, because the turret that you can see as you're walking in from here, through here, the turret appears as a bit of a focal element, and your gamer mind sets in and thinks, well, I'm gonna spend some time here now before I walk along, you know, I can't just ignore this turret. Doesn't mean everybody does this, but typically there's like danger and everything, you know. Let's just explore this a bit. So without using lighting, this already directs many players towards the left here, which then opens up the next shot, which is this. Yes, we also have this nice shot here. This one is definitely built more as a intentional shot right here. You have Sterling here again, you have the foreground again, you have a secondary subject here, which is the two turrets. The background is just the same color, right? Like just greeble detail, you know, there's nothing to look at here. But it's also pretty clear that this is the way to go, because you have the blue lighting back there, kind of like a safe haven from the orange. This window was just added to have some nice flashlight shadows through here. Yes, everything is nicely positioned. Like this truss was also positioned so you could just about get some flashlight through here. This was a bit of a pain to get working, that you have some flashlight through here. I always like to try to have some sort of dynamic shadow influence as much as possible, and it's often so hard to get all of the angles right. But now you walk out, and now you have got this shot again, the walkway here, and you have this like nice foreground with the catwalks. Catwalks always just frame such a nice foreground, just immediately close to you, to the left and right, while keeping is open. It's also great that this like goes down. If this was up at the same height, right, like this could have just been further up, but having it go down frames this better. Because if this was up here, it's like kind of a bit awkward. It's like not at the eye height, right? It would be like up there all of a sudden, and then there's no detail down here. But if when it is down, all of the detail here is at eye height. These chairs are at eye height, eye height, eye height. Everything important is at eye height. You don't have to look like like this all of a sudden, you know. Same with this here. It's all at eye height. Going down here, this just opens up the space for this point of interest a bit more, because if this was straight to the left, the catwalk would be blocking a lot of this view. So that way, by having it go down, you're kind of freeing up this this shot a bit more as well. There's nothing blocking all of this down here. You have a nice clear view of the turrets and of the fan and everything around it. Yeah, in here again, I mean, this is the same thing pretty much. You're on the other side, all of the important stuff happens at eye height. It's not like the destruction is happening over there for some reason, or like down here or whatever. It's just right in front of your face. If thing I like about this is it kind of reminds you of where you have been, where you came from. Right, you're walking back here, your camera is naturally gonna be at this position, so you're looking back to where you were. I think that's pretty much it for this map. Yeah, I think that's a nice A and B comparison of two very similar maps, where one evolved into the other over many years, and what sort of lighting tricks you can use to direct the player's eyes and keep stuff interesting. So, take care, bye bye.